what's up, everybody? Thanks for tuning in to another episode of All Things Entrepreneur. I'm your co-host, Jessica Myers.
And it's your co-host, Errol J. Allen.
And we shine the light on the blind side of entrepreneurship. How you feeling today?
Blessed and highly favored. How about yourself?
Oh, I stay living the dream.
Well, speaking of living the dream, we have a very interesting topic and guest that we're bringing to the forefront today. We getting into the good old politics as usual. And who better to talk about than who's been a community activist for the past decade, Mr. Scotty Smart. How you doing?
I'm pretty good. Thank you guys for having me, for real. Thank you for having me.
Of course. So let's just get into it. How did you even like decide to immerse yourself in the space of, really bringing like community activists and politics to more of the community?
Honestly, I just cared a little bit. It just snowballed from me showing up. Around the time when Trayvon Martin happened, I was intrigued, right? I was like inquisitive. I was paying attention. I was one of those kids that always grew up watching the little law shows and knowing a little bit. I did like a semester for criminal justice, so I kind of knew like what was going on.
Did you watch the O.J. Simpson trial?
A little bit. I was only like 7 when that happened.
Okay.
I don't think I remember. I just remember very small details about that, not really everything. So I wasn't that in tune at that time, but what really sparked my interest, so I had a situation that was similar. I come from a background in party promotions, and so I was a party promotion dude, and I was leaving the club one night in 2014, and I had a police encounter. 3 a.m, leaving a strip club, trying to meet up with a nice young lady. She fell asleep. I'm at the call box, pressing the button, and then they surround me and say, I'm in a stolen vehicle.
Oh, damn.
Yeah, this is May of 2014. It's like, I have a video. It's like, just when Instagram wasn't really doing the long clips, I got like a 15-second video that's like, I'm surrounded by all these officers. They pull me out the car. They say my hat looks gang-related. I had a Miami Heat hat on when LeBron was in Miami. Remember those leather brims we used to have on the hats with little snake skin? They said my hat looked gang-related or whatnot. That just sparked my interest to show me that it could happen to anybody.
Yeah, because was the car stolen?
No, it was my car. So they had me out there for about an hour. Then they sent the black guy over there to tell me, calm down, we're going to let you go. I was like, yeah, I wasn't doing nothing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so they were trying to search for marijuana or anything.
Yeah, just to pin something.
Yeah, and so I always tell, black people don't smoke in your cars. I am a smoker, but don't smoke in your car because that gives them probable cause to search your vehicle or whatnot. So I cooperated, wasn't confrontational or anything like that. Understanding my rights at the moment because I had a little criminal justice history. And so from that,
watching TV.
Well, I did one semester.
And
in
the
school.
semester.
One semester. And then I was like, I don't know if I want to be no officer, y'all. I don't know. What's the short-term goal for this? I'm going to be a probation officer. I wasn't able to look long-term and wanted to be a lawyer at the time, though. But, and then in 2014, Mike Brown happens a few months later. And so when Mike Brown happens in August of 2014, I just wanted to show up.
Yeah.
And then from then on, I just started showing up. And I just started showing up everywhere and just started to be inquisitive, started to figure out where I needed to be. And it took a lot of time of just observing our community. Mm-hmm. So that was the first couple years. Like, I didn't really embrace this role of leadership until about 2018, 2019. I got some good mentors that started to see my passion, but it started to give me some direction.
Yeah.
And so that's the biggest thing. Is like, I was passionate, I cared, but I didn't know what the differences were and who can make changes in the community and stuff like that. So my mentors started to bring me into those spaces. And around 2017, 2018, started going to the protests, started being on the front lines, started understanding that protesting and voting were a part of the process, not the entire process, but started to learn the process. And then by 2020, when George Floyd takes place, I'm at a rally. I'm not supposed to speak. I'm just on the stage with my mentors who are speaking. And then one of our speakers found out she had cancer that morning, and we had an open slot. And I just had some real good energy that day. I had been on the phone with some people from Minnesota. They were showing me the buildings was on fire. And I just grabbed the microphone, y'all. I was just like,
hey.
I'll ask for permission later.
Minnesota showed me something. And I'm shaking because it's like, I was never doing public speaking at this time. So it's like 10,000 people in Centennial Park. Like, I'm shivering a little bit as I'm stuttering, trying to talk. And then that was like a breakthrough moment for me. And to CNN Center right after that, I don't remember if y'all remember when Killer Mike and T.I. were on TV.
Yeah.
The CNN Center caught on fire. And
Yeah,
that was
it was
right
crazy.
after I talked. And so I didn't get into trouble, but we had to have a conversation with some city officials about that afterwards as activists. And then that just put me in a lot of the different rooms. And it just continued from there. The summer of 2020, I know it was the pandemic, but it was the summer of Black people getting heard. I felt like the whole world stopped and people couldn't do nothing but be at protests. And everybody was like, where the protests at today? And I felt like a promoter again. I was like sending out flyers every day, and people were just showing up. All of 2020 because of the pandemic, and we didn't have anything else to do. So it was just like a moment for us to be heard. And then that's when I kind of realized that I was developing into a leader at that point and became a little bit more vocal. So I took a long time as a student and still consider myself a student of the work, but there were a new wave of younger activists emerging. And then one of my guys was like, lead us, big bro. And he handed me the bull, and I was like, I don't usually do this, but you know what? And then the crazy thing is that protest ended up being like halfway through it, it turned into the bigger picture video shoot. I had no idea. So I have a picture from that day where I'm leading the protest. Lil Baby's on one side of me, Desi Banks is on the other side of me. It's like the entire city of Atlanta behind me, and it looks so dope.
Oh, wow.
But that was like a real huge breakthrough moment. From then on, it's just been doing the work one day at a time and just trying to have maximum impact.
So let's harp in on this because you obviously been at it for about a decade strong. But first, you said 6-7 years, money wasn't flowing in like that. You was, getting brand awareness out there. People were knowing your name and knowing you to call, but the dollars wasn't coming in.
For sure. And
then you started to learn the business aspect of it to generate funds. What did that look like?
Well, two things. One, I came from a salesman background. So I could sell anything. I was a car salesman. I was the AT&T U-verse salesman knocking at your door trying to get a sale. I was the Sam's Club dude that was selling DirecTV in the store. So I always had a salesman background. When the nonprofit space started to take over for me, I was trying to start my own nonprofit. And it was called the Smart Foundation. Stood for Some Men Are Really Trying.
Oh.
And thank you. But the whole goal was to brand intelligence into the culture. And the thing about it was I knew how I had a big following, not as big as it is now, but maybe a couple thousand. And I just wanted to engage people. So I didn't actually know the business of what I was doing. I just cared. So one of my breakthrough moments as a business was when Hurricane Harvey happened in 2017. Sitting at the house watching TV, and we're like, let's do something. Like, what can we really do? And so we started organizing. Well, at that time, I didn't know it was considered organizing, but I was just like passionate. So I started going through my contacts. I had a guy that had some trucks. He said he would take the trucks. If we get the supplies, he'd take them to Houston. So then I had some people that had drop-off locations. Then we ended up getting in contact with a guy that ran the YMCAs. So every YMCA in the city of Atlanta became a drop-off location. Then we started using social media to raise funds, and people would just start donating, and we would go buy the stuff, and we would show the receipts, and we were like, this is what we're doing with your money. And it snowballed from there. In that moment of Hurricane Harvey, it was just one idea. We ended up sending 4 18-wheelers down to Houston and taking care of 2 apartment complexes full of people living in those spaces. That's when it was like, oh, this is real. This is possible. All right, but I had no background in nonprofit. I just cared about our community, and I was like, shit, at this point, I wasn't even a nonprofit. It was just passion again. And so after that, I still was selling cars, 1 foot in, 1 foot out. And I didn't actually know the business of nonprofits, but I was always a solution-based thinker. And so I would see things the community needed. Turkey drives, Christmas toy drives. We were sending kids to prom. We were paying for kids to play sports. Like, we were just investing in the community. We would make a post. We would say, hey, donate the funds, and we would just go do a thing with the funds. Again, it wasn't consistent. I still had a normal job at the time. And then around like 2018, I just didn't want to sell cars no more. I was actually like bad energy at the car dealership. It was like I had been there 4 years. I didn't want to do it anymore. And so I was kind of like spending most of my time working on my plans for my nonprofit. And they fired me. and then that shifted everything, because I went from a decent job to having moved back in with my mom, early 30s, talking about my passion and my purpose. My parents were like, "Where's the money?"
That'd be crazy. when you frustrated with a job and you want to quit and then they fire you, you be like, "Wait, I want to leave on my terms, not necessarily."
I was clicking a nice little check. I can still sell cars in my sleep. I was salesman in a month, 2 months ago.
Yeah.
And I think there was just a stubbornness in me that figured out that I was doing something right, and I wanted to figure it out. But in my entrepreneurial space, I started my own clothing line. It's called the Change Creators, and that was a big thing. And then I had a friend, actually Tad on me, who passed away in 2022 as well. We had a clothing line called the Black Royalty Team, and so he's the one that really got my entrepreneurial wheels going in 2015. That was always going, and so we were still doing that from 2015 on to about 2018, 2019. We had shirts like Unapologetically Black, like Son of a Queen. It was just Black empowerment T-shirts. So that was the first thing. But now I had to really figure out, okay, how can I eat off of this? So we had to start really like going to a lot of pop-up shops and vending a lot of places at the time. Still just enough to survive at the moment. But I went through that phase and then I started doing events. And so kudos to y'all to do a podcast, but I started doing a podcast and I was figuring I was putting more money into it than I was making any profit, right? And it's funny, I built this model of a podcast that people are doing now, but I did it in like 2019, 2020, where I realized it's hard to make money as a podcast. And so I started doing live shows. And so I would have like $20 tickets. I would sell like 50 tickets, make $1,000. I would have vendors pay, and it would be like a live show. And it was an interactive podcast. So how you see all those people doing the tours and they had the people come up, I was like, damn, that's kind of crazy. Like, that was the whole concept I created in 2019 and 2020 of a live podcast with an audience. But it was really for me to make some money. It really was like, I just need to figure out, okay, if I'm not going to work and I'm chasing this passion that I don't know how to get paid for, how am I going to be able to at least take care of me? Fortunately, I don't have any children, so I can kind of just get by. You know what I'm saying? I was at mom's crib. I had a car note, cell phone, not too many expenses. And so it was just be able to eat, being able to get around. So I went through that struggle period for a while. And then in 2022, I was getting more awareness as far as a leader in the community. I had done like New York Times. I had been like the cover of the AJC. I've been on Fox News, everything local wise. And then a friend got a position with New Georgia Project, the company I'm with now. And then when they got on, they were like, I think this would be, I could hire you up under me for that. And that's when I honestly started to get paid to do the work in 2022. Crazy thing about that scenario, in which I don't even know if you know this, but my best friend, one of my best friends, but I would say that my best friend, as guys, I don't think we really put them in categories, but my best friend at the time was Trouble, the rapper. And he ended up dying the day before I started the job. He died on June 5th. I started the job on June 6th.
So that gave you even more passion.
It gave me a lot of passion, gave me a lot of pain, gave me a lot of anger.
Yeah.
There was a lot that went into that. Digging myself out of depression. A whole lot of questions for God. Like, you closed this chapter, you opened this chapter. Why they, like, literally 24 hours difference. Like, I literally was having mental health issues. Like, I really was having a hard time grasping reality. Fortunately for me, my father's a therapist and could see the signs of me spiraling out of control. My anger was just ridiculous. I was not myself for probably about a year. I was really just angry with the world for about a year and a half, like asking God, like why? And then in that same year, I lost my friend that started the clothing line with me. Ridge died on Thanksgiving night of 2022. So within 6 months of me getting into a position that I'm like, I kind of about to be making some money doing all I love, I lose two of my best friends. And I'm just like,
yeah, that's tough.
Ugh. And so I tell people a lot of time my success bothers me. Cause I'm like, it could be so much more. I'm having a great time. I have nothing to be to be unhappy about. But at the same time, there's a missing piece to my glory. Like, they saw this for me before I saw this for myself. Like, they were pouring into me 2015, 2016. Trouble helped me come out of my show. I was in the cut for a long time. Like, nah, hell no. I ain't getting all out in the front lines. Like, I was always a strategist. I like to be behind the scenes and think through things. And then they was just like, bro, you need to be out front. You need to be more outspoken. I was just a little bit uncomfortable about that. And then as I embraced it, I had to learn, and I studied more and became a better speaker.
So some of the works that you're doing, because I saw the other day we speak at the CAB, you have like workshops, all the stuff. Let's speak to some of the works that you do to help encourage people to come out and, obviously participate. Then I got another question to follow up off of that. Go ahead.
It's really just about meeting people where they are and making it fun. I think sometimes when we look at politics, we think it's so suit and ties over our heads. And really, we're all in the political world, whether we understand it or not. And so it's kind of like being able to break down that barrier and be an example of like, you can do this, you don't got a code switch, your vote does matter, and to be able to meet them where they are. So one thing I love about our job, they tell us to go meet people where they are and get them engaged. Like sometimes I did a table in that Candyland, a strip club, with getting them to sign my petition at the strip club. We do spades tournaments. We do 3-on-3 basketball tournaments. I'm a black male organizer, so I try to figure out where I can meet black men and have conversations. And from that, I try to have what we did. The first thing we did was try to form a campaign that would engage black men. And so we did a campaign, a young black men, first off, 18 to 35 is our target audience. And so we started working on legalizing marijuana in the state of Georgia. And as we worked on that, we could see that it would just gauge their interest. Like if I'm at a festival, I think I'm like at a backyard cookout or whatever I'm at with our tabling event, and I'm like, hey, bro, you want to legalize weed? They might just, what you say? They'll just stop a little bit, you know what I'm saying? But I think that was the biggest thing.
Great way to get them in the door.
Right, that was the whole thing.
Great way to get them in the door.
Bing!
That's what they meant by gateway drug.
And so once we got that, and then we could also pivot them to show them wins, right? Like we have a success story down in Camilla, Georgia. We have a city councilman who's not even 30 yet named Corey Morgan. Shout out to Corey Morgan. He won his city council race in Camilla, Georgia by 8 votes, literally 8. And then as he got in office his first term, he wrote legislation to make the possession of less than an ounce a $35 ticket in his city. He's one of 20 cities that have decriminalized marijuana in the state of Georgia at this time. So we saw that whole process take place, and we can show people the wins. And so our biggest thing is, what I've realized in this space is we just don't know.
Yeah. And
we're too egotistical and too prideful to say that we don't know about politics. And so we'll just be like, I don't want to get involved in that. Instead of asking the tough question, and we have a fear of looking stupid. And so I'm trying to build that barrier where you can feel like you have a safe space to ask the right questions, because I'm not going to belittle you for not knowing. And I think that's the biggest thing, because most of our conversations in politics are just surface level. And it can say Trump, Biden, Trump, Kamala, but it's more than 70% of the laws that affect your life are on a local level.
And
that's the biggest thing. So when we're talking about 150 million may vote in the presidential election, so you may feel a little bit of hopelessness if you don't understand that process, and I get it. But when I start talking about your city, and we talk about mayors, there's 535 cities in the state of Georgia. There's mayors in the state of Georgia who won elections with less than 1,000 votes. And Metro Atlanta and College Park and East Point and Lithonia and Stonecrest. And if you look at these numbers, if you look at county numbers, if you look at state officials, we're governed by our state. Most people don't know who their state representative is. And so once we started being an educational resource about the entire process and can provide that information with clarity and understanding to our people, where we can make it fun, educational, but also allow them to become a resource, right? It's like for me to have impact, it's like, yes, I can do this work, but the more I feed you information and you can have an intelligent conversation, the more impactful we are as a people. So it's more about spreading the wings as far as we can, and getting to that local level of understanding what issues do you care about. It's about self-interest. Like, we're beyond the space now in politics where we can't just keep telling folks to register to vote. We can't just keep telling them to go vote. That's what's causing voter fatigue.
Yes.
Because we're not educated about what we're doing.
Yes.
So we're like, I signed up to vote and ain't nothing happened. We're like, well, what were you looking for to happen?
Yeah.
What did you expect to happen? And who did you think was going to do that? Right? And it's like, exactly. It's like, is that their job? Like, well, so-and-so was in office and ain't nothing changed. He's at the federal level. What were you expecting to change within your community?
Yeah. You talk about your potholes down the street, but then you talk about, you voted for.
Or it's just like, and what I've learned to do is take things that are big community conversations in the moment. When the tragedies happen about the gun laws, do we know about the gun laws in the state of Georgia? We have one of the most lax gun law states where 18, you open carry state at all times. Everyone around has got a gun, you know? Do you care about one of the big things if we're talking about presidency versus state, when they overturn the abortion rights, Roe versus Wade, Donald Trump loves to say that's a state thing now. The state of Georgia is illegal. And we're fighting for that currently. Last week, we had a judge overturn it to it was previously said that we had 22 weeks in the state of Georgia before Roe versus Wade was overthrown. This week, a Supreme Court judge overruled that, and now it's back illegal to 6 weeks again. So we're going back and forth within the court system. And what most people don't understand also, Supreme Court judges in certain places in here in the state of Georgia are elected officials as well. And we had at least 35 judges run unopposed. And so we're talking about systematic oppression as a people. We're getting unfairly sentenced. Why? Because no one's even running those races. You know what I mean? And a lot of them are intimidated because what if they lose? Now the judges treat you wrong in court. Yeah. You know, but we have to be able to look at those numbers and say we can really galvanize the troops.
So it's about who's willing to take the bullhorn and lead, just like you had to do.
For sure. It's an uncomfortable space of growth if you're going to be the example. But if you're willing to take on that, I think, like, what is your life's work?
Because it's a lot of people that I know that want to get involved in politics, but they fear, to your point, if you oppose the system, bless you, if you oppose the system too much, they feel like, well, we've seen the examples of what happened. And then it feels like, you know, a lot of these national organizations, because growing up here in Atlanta, I don't know if you're from Atlanta.
I was raised here.
What high school?
I went to MLK on the east side. Oh, I went to Westlake my 9th grade year.
Okay.
And then I went to Martin Luther King on the east side.
Okay, because being raised here, I was able to see a lot of global leaders.
Okay.
That made global impact, and they're right down the street. They're tangible. They're touchable. Not a lot of communities get exposure to that level of leadership civically, globally. Mm-hmm. And they created a lot of organizations, which you feel like, I don't know if you read Animal Farm, where it's like it's a political satire. Okay. But it's about how the animals revolt, but then, you know, against the humans, but then they only to become the position of the humans and become the humans. And so it's like when you think about a lot of these organizations that were started, you know, in the 50s and 60s to get us organizationally here, did they get so much money in the fat of the cow that they lost sight of the activism, the change? And that's where I feel like it became a voter fatigue, because it's like when you get to the very thing that you're activist and passionate about, it's like you get the fat of the cow. You get the milk, and you're just like, well, okay, it's not that bad. And I think that's why it was a disconnect in generations. Yeah. It's like we got here, and it's like, okay, well, we stopped fighting and doing the things in the front lines that people were risking their lives for.
Right. Very true. I also, not to blame anyone, but I don't think our elder statesmen have done a good job passing the baton. Or I don't think they have been willing to give up the spotlight and the attention and to say, hey, this is next. This is who's next. Like, I'm lucky to have great leadership. One of my mentors is the president of the NAACP, Gerald Griggs. He saw me in 2018, and a lot of my breakthrough opportunities he could have took for himself. When I got interviewed for the New York Times, they called him, and he said, no, talk to him. Then that led to Fox News. When I got interviewed by Time Magazine, they called him first, and he said, no, talk to him. Those are opportunities he could have took for himself, but he's developed where he is. He's comfortable in where he is as a man, and his attention that he's getting for the work that he does, that he doesn't have to take every opportunity anymore. And so he's building allies or young people that look at him as a mentor in this space because he understands the ability to build up the next leaders. My biggest thing now is at 37, how do I look at people 30 and under and be like, pour into you, hey, I need you on these podcasts. I need your face everywhere. I need to show you how I got to where I am, and that some people did help me, and I have to pass that baton. Yeah. And I think that's something that our community has to do a better job of, is being able to see and not be threatened by who's next. Yeah. So many people have been intimidated by me, and I'm just like, I really just want to work with you. But it's like, then I start promoting your thing, and then you feel like I'm getting too much attention for it. I'm like, well, I'm I'm trying to get you the attention though. Like I'm trying to.
And I'm pointing it back to you.
Right. I'm not trying.
Is that the whole crabs in the barrel? Because it's like only I can be at the top. But to your point, it's understanding shared leadership of I should have at least somebody 10 years under and 10 years older as far as succession plans. Right. So 10 years older to follow from and mentor, but then 10 years younger so that they can carry their voice.
And we keep pushing. And that's how we build legacy leaders. That's how you take. I got a young dude that works with me. He's 26. This dude's brilliant. But he started at 21. I didn't get thought of this till 27. So even to see what I tell people is like, if you see people showing up to these type of things as a leader, you're supposed to go wrap your arms around them and bring them with you. If you are an activist or organizer and you're speaking at a rally, there's no reason why you shouldn't get every contact that's at that rally, because those people took the time out their day to be where you are and to hear a message. And I was that person in the crowd. And I was that person that said, oh, he looked like me. He talk like me. What you got coming up next? Let me follow him on Instagram. And then I started, like I said, from that, started hearing about what was going on in community. And the hard part was coming from where I come from, it wasn't a popular thing. So I really had to go alone at first. And everybody looking at you like, well, what the hell you doing? What you think you gonna be some fake ass Malcolm X, some fake ass Martin Luther King? The hood gonna talk crazy to you at first. And then you stand on that shit and say, what if I am? And then everybody's scared. Now, what if I am? And if I'm showing you I'm studying their work and I'm understanding, I've taken them off the pedestals but studied their work and say, hey, do you know how great you got to be to have your whole street a National Historic Site? Like I was sitting there one day.
Your high school you went to?
On Auburn Avenue. I was sitting there in front of the whole street, like not just your house, the entire street, the sidewalks you walked up and down. But also let's think about the work that you did, not just a mythical character. But understanding the prodigy of Martin Luther King, right? And understanding the organizer of Martin Luther King to take 30,000 people in an era where we didn't have social media.
Yep.
To not get on the bus and to formulate a system in which they can get to work daily by organizing carpools or cabs or taxis. That's a level of greatness that many people don't even think that far-fetched. How can I help an entire region build power and sit and think through that? You know what I mean? And really think a year of not having a way to get to work. Most folks are like, bro, that shit ain't got nothing to do with me.
Exactly.
That ain't got nothing to do with me, my boy. You tripping. I ain't finna goddamn. That ain't none of my problem.
Yeah.
And so
but then it is. Because it's even better, like you said, just understanding that I thought for whatever reason growing up that he was so much older than me. And to your point, you said you were 37. I'm the same age. And it's like.
He died at 39.
Yeah.
And Malcolm.
Yeah.
At 39.
So imagine all they did to affect the globe.
Right.
And they were your age.
Exactly. So that's why I say I ain't did shit yet. I'm in a good space. But now I'm trying to level up every time. Like I've plateaued at a certain level. Now it's what's next. It's okay. It's good to be in a room. It's like, for me, I feel like, you know how you have like a high school kid he's good in high school. You make it to college, it's like, all right.
Different league.
Are you going to be, all right, now if you're the best in college, when you make it to the pro, everybody was the best in college. Mm-hmm. I feel like I'm just now making it to the pros. And now, I just don't want to be in the pros. You know what I'm saying? I want to be the LeBron James of the pros. I want to be the greatest organizer. So a lot of people try to say, well, are you going to run from something? Possibly. But that's not my dream. It's other people have that vision. I want to be able to affect power. I want to be able to change laws. I want to be able to get people in power. As an organizer, I look at that as being a way we can shift our culture and be able to be of influence and of impact. And that's why I measure success.
Are you tied into the lobby community at all?
I'm learning. I'm getting into that space. But that's a tricky space. That's what we need to really talk about a lot, because lobbying is the people who are paid to go and champion for bills to pass. Mm-hmm. And that's why we can't get things done, is because they have been paid to go get behind, or they put money into someone's election, and now we can't pass gun laws because the NRA is funding their lobbying for the gun laws to be lax. And so it's like, when do you put morals and integrity before profit? And that's the biggest thing that we have is like how many people's souls have been bought in politics.
Because that's where I think the voter fatigue comes from. Because it's like David and Goliath. It's like, like you said, your grassroots looking at these problems, but then on a higher level, you got somebody paying greater than, they got PACs.
Yes.
They
yes.
You talk about organization. You talk about organization of 30,000 versus organization of millions.
Yes. And like, if you pay attention, it just depends on where you are in politics, right? But some of the people who were pro-Palestine, some of the people who were pro-Israel formed PACs to put people in office to get those people out of office that were in Congress. Jamal Bowman, I'm from the Bronx originally, he was the congressman from my grandmother's district. He was doing great work as a congressman. They formed a PAC because he was trying to end the war, and he was outspoken about that. They got somebody to run against him. They put millions and millions and millions of dollars into that machine and got him out of office. Now, a question we have to ask ourselves as a community is, when do we find a community development fund, right? And I'm going to keep saying this out loud, too, until it gets there. One of my dreams is to have a community development fund, like a subscription-based.
Oh, you talking to the right people.
Let's talk to them.
We got started in real estate.
What if we had a community development fund where it was $5 a month in every major black city, and we got to 100,000, let's say that was the goal. 100,000 black people in Metro Atlanta gave $5 a month. And we had a board of what we decided where we wanted to go to. That's $500,000 a month. What could we do with that? And how minimal would that affect us or our pockets? Because we got subscriptions to everything. Yep. The Apple gonna hit you for that $8.99, $12.99.
Netflix don't hit you for
$14. But even if you go out, right, when you look at how we spend our money, like I was formulating, it was called I'm trying to put it back together. It's called the Black Dollars United. But I'm challenging you to create some type of fund for community development. Because when we look at, I drink Hennessy, that's $15 a shot. Everywhere we go, and we think nothing of it. But the moment someone says, I'm trying to do something, what the hell you gonna do with my money? Shit, I ain't got $5.
Why does that happen? Why do people just flip the switch when it's now not some entertainment purposes, but now it's like educational purposes?
It's marketing.
Well, have you ever looked at the EOE?
What does EOE stand for?
EVE, Entertainment versus Education. They have like a statistic that shows we'll spend like $2,000 on entertainment before we spend $1 in education as a household. So it's really what we value as a culture and what we praise. We don't praise education. For the longest, that's really why I started the Smart Foundation, was to brand intelligence into the culture. That was the first thing. Like, smart is the new cool. Because I was a kid in school that was like cool enough to hang with the cool kids, but smart enough to hang with the smart kids too. And so I had all type of friends, but I was like, you're not finna bully them, no. Because we'll see about you. You know what I mean? But how many people were willing to stand up to the bullies? How many people could cross those lines of being cool and smart? Because the cool kids ain't got nothing right now. The cool kids is 30, 35, at home with mom, still trying to figure it out. Where the smart kid had a plan. Some of them orthodontists, some of them one of my friends from high school driving a Lamborghini. I'm like, damn. I say, you my boy, like, okay. You know what I'm saying? He wasn't even a lame. He was intelligent, though. He played sports and everything, but he went the educational route. Why don't we express or praise that route enough as a culture? It's like we are in a constant Jerry Springer show, and you got 30, 40-year-old women talking about they bad bitches and they throwing drinks at you. I'm like, why are we so dialed into that? And so that's a question for us internally that we have to have a switch, right? Because even within the education spaces, are we willing to read 20 minutes a day to get our kids? Because we have kids graduating high school who can't read on grade level.
Yeah.
So where are we praising as a culture that we look at as cool? And what are we showing the kids? Because all the kids know the rap songs, but I bet you make them read a chapter out loud on Instagram, then what? Can they do that? You know what I'm saying? So what are we willing to do? And it's always been a survival thing, I think, though, for real. It's like, where's the money going to come from the fastest? And I think that was kind of my problem as an early adult. It was like, you trying to tell me go to school and make some money in 5-6 years? I need some money now.
Yeah.
And I think we need to get back to pushing trade schools and and entrepreneurial workshops and understanding products and placement and marketing and advertising a product. I think we need those type of things back in our culture. But yeah, it's really
that's a really deep conversation because I mean, just like you said, and I don't know if we can come up with it on the podcast as far as like how to bring it, because I've been wondering that for a while. Like even being in Atlanta, the first projects that there were here in Atlanta. Mm-hmm. And the first projects to get taken down were here in Atlanta. And literally I documented that process of how they began to take down the homes, right? And talking about community development, not even knowing I would be in real estate. But we would spend time, we would go there to the projects because they came up with bogus reasons of tearing them down. So, for example, they submitted a plan in the courts of $20 million of what it would cost to renovate and make it livable. Like, they was like, oh, we'll have to repair the pools and the ACs and all that. But anybody who live in the hood know that there's no HVAC and there's no pools. So we were literally boots on the ground in Boat Rock and these communities here in Atlanta telling the residents they are coming up with bogus reasons in the courts. Because Abel Mabel Thomas was right there in the courts. We were in the courts with her right there. Literally, she's fighting for them, but nobody was showing up. Literally, they were running by in these cars, and here we are. I don't live here, but I just grew up here. I see what's happening, and we would have 2 people at the meeting. Yeah. But then there would be hanging out, you know, and obviously we had fun and we talked with the neighbors and all that, but it was only like 2 mamas that cared. And ultimately we know that all the projects wound up getting torn down. And a lot of them right now, like I said, this was a project we were doing in 2005, 2009. So now in 2024, a lot of them are still left blank and vacant, unused. And speaking of community development, it shook up our community. And a lot of the things that we were able to do, bust a lot of us that were out into the outskirts of Atlanta, leaving them, you know, with vouchers that they couldn't use. Because if the ambulance got called to their house, which if grandma had a heart attack, or the police being called to your house, the voucher is no longer valid. So it was ways that they were displaced and then weren't adequately housed. And so talking about community development, talking about, well, we tried to save them, but they
didn't show up.
They didn't show up. And so that's where I've been in this perplexity, because now being in real estate, you try to help them as wholesalers. We saw grandma's house being taken because people didn't have wills. They didn't have things in place to pass down assets and generational wealth. So we're like, wait, hey, can we get it together? It's like, how do you organize at that much of a level? Because for years, it's like, we'd rather take 20,000 than to think about how we can build $500,000 out the same house. We were selling houses for 10, 15, 20. And to them, that's the biggest check they ever gotten.
Right.
But seeing how it was flipped to hundreds of thousands to now values that white flight, they're coming back into the city where before it was taken.
And see, that's why I don't believe in gentrification. Because we weren't taught to invest back into our communities. Even the people who do get the education, most of us go and move to the outskirts. Yeah. That's where we want to be. So if we don't see value in coming home, or we're afraid to be in the community, and then I'm on the west side, I see some white people walking their dog on, I'm like, oh my God, this is crazy.
And it's back safe again.
This is what, West Midtown? No, baby, that's Bankhead. They call that motherfucker West Midtown.
No, over in the West End, they got a place called The Joint. How many people are in The Joint for having a joint? And now you have The Joint.
And then, like I said, you can see some black people understand the process, but it's about our financial literacy. It's about showing up in the courtrooms. But again, it goes back to your time management and what are you prioritizing? Because we got time to scroll all day. We got time to make time for what we want to make time for.
And we got money because other people are coming in. And because it's so interesting.
Because you got the Gucci.
as much as they market us, we don't have money. If you stand on Campbellton and Delowe here in Atlanta.
Yes.
And you look around in that corner and you see all the dollar signs. As much as they tell us we don't have money, right? Super Say got a dollar sign in the Super Say. The restaurant on the corner, Church, has got $19.99. Like, there's money and dollars everywhere. Because if you go in Buckhead or in other communities, you don't see that visual of money, right? Mm-hmm. But it's more wealth up here. But then here, they tell us we don't have money, but then it's all these places to capture money from the neighborhood that is not owned
terrible
by the
spending
people in the neighborhood.
Terrible spending. And that's a part of our discipline as well, because we can relate that back to the politics. Because in where you're spending your money, if you're not involved, how are they getting behind people who they want to put in office? Because you have a lot of places, your AT&Ts, your Coca-Colas, that endorse candidates or fund people as they want to. So your money is being used in a manner in which it could be actually oppressing you. So you could be funding your own oppression by spending money recklessly, not thinking about who you're spending money with, and they could turn around and pay a lobbyist to work on laws that tear down your community. But you don't care. You don't want to get involved.
You don't want to.
That ain't got nothing to do with me, bro.
Yep, exactly.
That ain't got nothing. All right, bro. But then you wonder why nothing happens. Then you want to be online complaining. But it's like, what do you take? We walk around with these computers in our hands all day. What are you scrolling? I remember when I wanted to work on public speaking, I would just YouTube public speaking. I would learn online, you know what I mean? Like, because I cared about that one thing. I was taking notes like I was in class, right? Like, I'm a student. It was like,
you listen to a rap song on an audiobook. Very simple. What's easy to do is easy not to do.
So it's about us challenging ourselves to be better and challenge ourselves to want something more for ourselves. It's like we have this hopelessness that we've given up.
Yeah.
I'm just like, not on my watch, y'all.
Yeah.
Like, I don't believe in giving up. And as long as I'm breathing, I'm getting up fighting. I've had some really, really dark days. I really understand that life isn't promised. I really understand that tomorrow isn't promised. Today isn't promised. So every day I'm here, I'm pumping out energy, impact, education, power building within our community.
So let's talk, like the end consumer, obviously you're targeting people 18 to 35 to get more involved. Most people have very little experience, exposure to it. The only thing they know is that this person is Trump versus Kamala right now. That's all they know. Yeah. How do you, I guess, influence them to get more aware, educated? What do you do to kind of like put that information in a consumable way for them, digestible?
I try to figure out their self-interest. And a lot of times you can look through the news cycles of what's being talked about a lot and then pinpoint the relatability to the politics. So right now, a talking point may be with the FEMA thing, right? Where they're saying how the funding is being dispersed. A lot of people in Congress voted for FEMA not to come back. The House Speaker said they won't go back into session until after the election, which means they can't give FEMA more money. Speaker of the House is a Republican. He's an elected official. You see what I'm saying? So it's being able to see something that's going to connect the dot for them and then trying to relate that to it and just talking about it. And then not being upset if you don't get it to happen, right? Because you don't know who's watching. You don't know. You just put it out there. Just continuously being a information resource. And I've done it for so long that now people start sending me the articles. Like, I don't got to go looking like, did you see this? You need to be talking about this. And I'm like, yes. But I honestly just trying to figure out what a person's self-interest is. And then trying to figure out, okay, we're talking about rent. Do you understand the affordable housing laws and who's controlling that and how that's allowed to happen through government? And that's actually something we could possibly change if we had enough people show up and start to put pressure on people that are in office that are taking money from people to stay in office, you know? And so it's about figuring out something that pulls them in and not being extra preachy, but allowing it to come to you. Like, people see it enough when they're ready to have the conversation. One thing about me, I ain't forcing it on nobody. Like, I be in the hood chilling. If you want to talk, you can talk, or we can have a drink, we smoke a blunt, we can listen to some music. Cool. But if you want to have engaging conversation, I'm all for it as well. And so I think that was one of my tactics, was like not just throwing it at people, or I feel like a biggest disconnect we have within our community is the people who have the information talk down on people. Like they ain't shit and like they dumb.
And you know what, and I'm sure most young adults can relate to this, the parent to child dynamic when it comes to politics. Like, because they're a certain party, by default, you must be that party too. Mm-hmm. Even though I'm free will, I can think how I want to think, choose what I want to choose. But because, you know, parent-child dynamic, you got to be this. It's almost like a religion.
True, but also, at what extent do the parents know?
And it's all surface. I mean, not all. I'm not going to say all.
Because when we talk local, none of that has to do with parties. They're all nonpartisan. They can say later, oh, I'm a Republican, Democrat. But on the ballot, it doesn't show. And so when we talk about who runs your community, it's about social issues. Do you care about criminal justice reform? Do you care about better access to health care? Because a lot of young adults, we try to go that avenue with, okay, when you get 26, I think you get taken off of your parents.
Georgia.
Yeah, your health care. So, but you got people that's not for health care for all. You got hospital closures happening all the time. So do you care about that? You know, like just being able to find, do you know what the minimum wage is in the state of Georgia?
Like $8?
No. That's the federal minimum wage is $7.25. The Georgia minimum wage is under the federal minimum wage, so you can't actually get paid what it is, but it's $5.15. That's something that your state legislation can control. But how many people know who is in that gold dome voting for these? Because we flipped Georgia blue because of the White House situation. And kudos to those who participate in federal elections. We had the highest turnout the last 2 elections in history. Beautiful. But what about the other elections? We have a 15 to 20% turnout ratio in the state. I'm not just talking about black people. I'm talking about statewide. So if black people were to show up at a 20 to 30% ratio, how much of a difference could that sway? Because we're not showing up, so we're not getting representation, and we have the numbers that say if we actually care to create change within our community, we could do something about it.
So it's like, really, that's how your fund is so pivotal and important, because it's like, show me rather than you can tell me.
Yep.
Because I know, and I don't know if you want to harp on, I know you mentioned gentrification, not caring for it, but there is something to say about taking your disposable income and putting it back into reinvesting it back into your community.
For sure.
And that's what I view gentrification as, putting your investment dollars back into your own community.
Right.
Now, it's unfortunate when other people put it in your community.
Right. We don't see the value in our community.
But then there's still something to understand about the process, because I just feel like what you're saying, and you make it so easy, but people complain about things and they may complain about rent, but not familiar with their power to go talk about affordable housing in the government. So it's like, how do you point to the system in the vein of, okay, this, like, if you're dealing with this, then you take this. Like, if you're dealing with cancer, everybody knows leukemia is a treatment.
Exactly.
Or, well, for hospital, for the example of the
right.
Like, you know what to deal with. Like, if you're dealing with a heart attack, you know to go to a cardiologist. Like, how do you pair people with the problem, with the solution in the right way? Like, at what point is voting and protesting more of the answer than other things?
Well, I think it depends on what the issue is, right? And so first we have to figure out what your self-interest is, and then we can start to figure out who's the decision maker in that space. So what do you care about? For one, what are you willing to show up for? And then who's the decision maker we have to put pressure on to change that? And so once you can connect those dots and hold those people accountable, and even to the extent where we may get somebody elected into office, right? We may have, we voted for them. But also, have you ever sat in on a school board meeting, right? To see, have you ever sat on a county commissioner meeting? The county commissioner meeting I was at yesterday, right? They gave away a lot of money for grants, for funding, for different things for DeKalb County, for rec centers, for police athletic leagues, for nonprofits. How is your tax dollars being spent? I mean, it's old ladies in there complaining about some dude had a mattress on the side of their building. But I bet you that mattress is going to be gone because she decided to show up. And so the politicians are only going to cater to the people who show up.
We're present, yeah.
It's not about, for one, someone said it's not about your politician, you knowing your politician, it's about them knowing you. When I walk in the room, they know what's up, bro? Oh, you here today? What's going on? They want to know what I'm here for.
What issue?
I know you got something going on.
Case in point, I'm not sure if you're familiar with the short-term rental legislations that were trying to be passed here with Armstrong and everything else.
I'm not aware.
I just heard about it.
So I'm actively there.
Okay,
so,
yeah.
Long story short, back in 2022, they was originally going to put out the law where you can only have one Airbnb and had to be your primary house, and then one more outside of that, and you had to be a primary resident in the city of Atlanta. Okay. That was the preposition. They was gonna pass that if we didn't show up in force, in present, to say, hey, we're an operator, we disagree with this. This is what you're impacting. We got contractors, family, yard men. Like, this is an economic thing way past just living in the short-term rental operator. Mm-hmm. It's because we was present.
Yes, sir.
And now, fast forward 2 years later, they're still having talks about it, but it's not passed. Because had that been passed, it'd be a very different landscape right now for the real estate and landlord rental markets.
And also, I challenge people who do show up to be more vocal about it. Become your own street reporter. Like, tell people what's going on. Hey, y'all, this happened today. I'm outside, sit and show people the process. Like I said, until you see them vote on some laws. Like from my big thing I'm gearing up for next year, state legislative session. When state representatives are elected, for one, they're all on the ballot this year, right? So we agree with anything in the state of Georgia. Like right now, the big thing is the reproductive rights. We have to
I think it's already been 2 years. We're about to change, re-elect for them again?
Yes.
Dang, that's fast.
They're every 2 years, yes.
Yeah.
So state reps are on the ballot this year. Everyone in the state of Georgia is on the ballot. Mm-hmm. And so we need to flip 13 seats to get more power within state legislation to change some of the laws to be more progressive than conservative. Now, how does that work? So they're all on the ballot. January, they have what's called legislative session. Legislative session takes place from January to end of March, mid-April. It's supposed to be 40 days, 40 nights, but it's not consecutive. But it's called it's a legislative session. And then throughout that, you go down to the Capitol. Anyone can go. Regular clothes. Like I like to take black men. We walk in there. I'll tell you, they get a little uncomfortable. Sometimes I go suited up because I can. But I like to walk in there as a constituent. You know what I'm saying? And yeah, y'all serve us. And we're here to sit in and watch and you can see them, pull up the bill, everybody vote on the bill, they close the machine, lock the machine, passed. Then they got to go to the other, so you can see the process in action, right? And then then they have 2 periods. They have what's called crossover day. Crossover day is when, so a bill either starts in the House or the Senate. For it to become a law, it has to cross over to the other side. It has to pass your side of legislation, your respective house, and then cross over to the other party, other side. If it's the Senate, it needs to go to the House. If it's the House, it has to go to the Senate. It's on crossover day. If it doesn't get through crossover day, it's not going anywhere.
That's how a bill becomes a law.
And then the other side has to say whether or not they agree with it as well. They can change some of it. They can okay it. They can say we can make some changes to it, or I can say no. Once they agree on it, then it has to be signed by the governor to become a law. But so then you have crossover day and you have sine die. Sine die is the most hectic day in government. It's the last day of legislative session. It's where they got to put all the bills in that are going to go in effect that day and have to be voted on that day. That's usually, like I said, end of March, mid-April, depending on how the scheduling works out.
So that's the best time to go?
Yes.
Or is that too late? You want to go in January because it might be too late.
Right, you want to go in
if you want to get something done.
Exactly. If you want to just sit and see the process take place on sine die, and then at the end they throw all their papers in the air. They be there after midnight. It's the last day. They be there real long that day. But that's the last day. But yeah, if you want to go sit in or talk to your state rep, shout out to some of my state rep friends. Eric Bell was championing for marijuana legislation. State Rep Amani Barnes was championing for school lunches for the kids to have free lunch across the state. They didn't make it out of their committees to even make it to a vote on their side of the House, right? So we have to have more people in these committees that know what's going on. And so that's the process of the law. And then once the law is voted on or approved, it goes into place either June or July of that year. So that's how the entire process works. But we have to be able to be in the rooms, to talk to the people, to understand who serves you in these meetings. Because a lot of people who are in these rooms don't look like us because we aren't showing up to be the representation for our own community.
Because we're so busy E versus E.
Yes, entertainment versus education. It's just but we know that education is our gateway. We really know it. But it's so much money thrown at entertainment. And so everybody want to be that one-hit wonder, that viral sensation and make it overnight. Take the long route, the 10-year route, you know what I'm saying? And it'll pass by if you just putting your feet in front of each other.
10 years is just so monumental. Somebody here in 10 years is like, golly, I'm 30
right.
years old
no,
right
you're
now.
Right. I said that when I was thinking about being a lawyer. I was like, well, hell no.
Exactly.
Hell no. That's why I stopped doing the criminal justice route. I was like, I ain't trying to be no probation officer. I ain't trying to be no correction officer. Those the first jobs you get when you first get a degree in that space. I was like, I don't know if this is for me. And really just started trying to find myself. So I understand the entire process and how you can be discouraged by it. But you have to figure out what do you want out of life. And it has to only matter to you. And you have to be willing to walk alone if that's your purpose. If your best friends don't get it. I remember the NFL boycott. I ain't watched football for 4 years. Bro, you tripping, bro. Motherfucking Falcons. Motherfucking Falcons. so what? It's like, okay, I can find. Then I started finding other things of value to do on a Sunday afternoon.
In your time, yes.
Yes,
exactly.
It's like, you know what? Now I feel like I'm ahead.
Yeah.
Choices and trade-offs.
Yeah.
That's all it's about.
Yeah, because you get so busy, like you said, rooting for a team that what did that add to your life? Versus you could take that same, but that's the distraction. That's the staying focused.
The endorphins of, being and it's good. Like I said, I don't ever want people to think I don't want you to have entertainment.
Yeah.
Like we do need that. Like I come from a party promotions background. I've been to every club, every party you can think of, right? So I do understand that, but you can have balance. Like if you spend hours over there, check yourself and see how much hours you spend doing this. Because in the evaluation, you're gonna spend $2,000 to $5,000 in entertainment before $1 in education.
That's the problem.
How much entertainment do we watch before we read a book?
But the irony is that the entertainment, and like you said, I'm all for entertainment and I love my chill time. But the entertainment can take you away out of the world that most people don't want to face. But the education is the one that can change the world that you don't want to face.
And if you're a nerd like myself, you could be entertained through education. Because I be on YouTube just looking up stuff, researching stuff. You know what? This is entertaining to me. I'm a nerd. I like to learn. I'm like, shit, I always be learning, goddamn. Like, how can I learn something new today?
Yeah.
And so it's like, YouTube University is crazy. I be on it. Man, it's so much good information out there. I was like, TED Talk. I just be Googling shit. I want to know how to do this. And I just go down that rabbit hole, and like, dang. But to some people, you have to figure out what's your best form of learning.
Yeah.
Because some people, I'm an audio visual learner. Like now I've never done the audio books though. So I haven't got into that, but I like to sit down and read a book, but I've never like listened to a book before and had someone read it to me. I've never done that before. I've never even tried it, but I hear a lot of people excel in that space. Impactful. Yeah, I've never tried that.
So speaking of books,
okay,
what have been some of your top 3 most influential books that you've read?
Ooh, one that has nothing to do with my work, but had to do with my mental health was Battle Cry. Battle Cry by Jason Wilson.
Okay.
It's about emotional intelligence. It's a male perspective on emotions. Okay. I recommend that to a lot of men. There's this book called Martin Luther King on Leadership or something like that. I just read that recently, and it talks about his work. And like I said, it talks about the development. It talks about his wins and losses. It talks about him going into Albany and not winning and people not being receptive to him and him having to pivot because he got so big, the jealousy started to come at times. And people's like, we don't want you here. You're bringing too much commotion. You go down to South Georgia. They don't want to ruffle too many feathers, especially when you don't got to live there. You know what I'm saying? You going into these redneck towns, these sundown towns, and you trying to build power with black people, but they got to live there. And you don't. And so it's like, hey, don't
bring all that stuff.
Right, let's be ready for that. And so that was one. Battle Cry, definitely. And I'm reading a book now called Going Public. And it's about organizing. It's about understanding public relationships, public friendships, private friendships. It's about teaching people where their powers, having one-on-ones with people about their self-interest and forming coalitions with like-minded people, addressing power, what is an action. So it's me still trying to develop in the space of work that I do. Like I said, I want to be the best, right? So it's like, I look at myself as a professional, but as a professional, how you getting them shots up? Like,
get your reps in.
Yeah, like you gotta practice. You gotta get better every day. What is your repetition? How are you building your skills? How are you fine-tuning yourself? And so that's a book I'm reading currently, Going Public. And my dad actually is an author. He wrote this book called The Spring of My Life, The Chronicles of a Woman Addict. And so, but we're forming we started it last year. I kind of got super busy with this year being election year, but we were starting to form a Black men's book club. And we just recommending books and just, like I said, just trying to sharpen ourselves and just trying to be better daily and like be the example of I can show up for community. Like tomorrow I'm going to read at a daycare. You know what I'm saying? Like that's what I love. I just want to be in community to show people from the community that I come from. You talk about Campbellton Road. I went to Bunch Middle School. I went to Continental College Elementary School. I stayed across the street from Greenbrier Mall when Freaknik was happening. So it's like
ground zero.
Right. Like, how do I?
There's now a documentary about it now.
Exactly. I was like, I wonder if we was in traffic one of them days, leaving the game. I was like 8 years old, but
I grew up not too far. That church right there on Campbellton, and when we would be leaving, my mom would be like, "Turn your head, just turn your head."
I played at Adams Park, so I spent all my childhood at Adams Park, which is on Delow.
Oh yeah.
That was the Cascade Youth Organization was my whole. So my whole thing was always rooted in community, and most of my friends, like one of my friends I played with at Adams Park, I called my cousin. He getting married. I'm the best man at his wedding. So it's like, how do we form those communities, right?
Local.
Like I've known these people since I was 5. I was 6, 7 when I first moved to Atlanta, first, second grade. And we're 37. We're still friends. Yeah. And so it's how do we build and how do we revisit that energy for ourselves? And it's a lot of individualism happening right now. And I'm not a fan of it. And so it's like, how do we get back to loving on each other?
So in conclusion, because obviously I know the urge is to get people to participate, vote, but that's just one step of the battle.
Sure.
What would you want to see happen after the votes and after, the tallies run up? What's the next course of action you'd want people to take or see happen?
So it starts with legislative session, right? So how we break government down, there's 4 levels of government. It's federal, state, county, city. So we're dealing with the federal election right now, but it's really hard to get laws changed federally.
Yeah.
We're still working on legalizing marijuana federally, okay? So my next step is to work on that state. So then we talked about the state legislative session in January.
So April. Yep, 40-40.
Whenever you have the availability to be in those spaces, show up to that. Okay, if we can't get those wins there, what's next? It's county commissioner meetings. How do we show up and see what's going on and be in these rooms and report back to our community? Bro, did y'all know?
Especially you talking about money. I know people talking about grant money.
Bruh, I was in there like,
grants.
I seen them give away $4 million for a park and recreation. Like they're going to rebuild something in DeKalb County. Some park over there getting $4 million. They gave away about $10 million in funding.
So you have to know how to get on the docket to even be something that they vote on. So that's a little education before you get there.
Right. Luckily, we have a policy team at my job. So they introduced us to the commissioner. And then the commissioner, Ted Terry, is the one that championed for Black Men Vote Day in DeKalb County. And that's how we got that. But we're working on building relationships with all of the county commissioners because our goal is to decriminalize marijuana in DeKalb County. So let's see how we can bring things forth that Black men care about and first push them to the polls, but then go. And then also at the county level, city, biggest one, school board, excuse me. Most people don't know that half your taxes go to school board. Within the state of Georgia, most kids graduate not on grade level, and it's because of how the funding is spent by school boards. If you have $1 billion budget, and you have $1 million going to literacy training, well, why? Well, you wonder why they can't read or why it's not a priority to them because you're not making it a priority within your budget. So school board meetings.
Because then where the money going? If they got to lobby for free lunch, so they ain't getting food. They're not getting educated. Teachers complain that they're not getting the resources that they. My sister, she an educator. She be raising money to get the supplies in her own room. So I'm like, where's the money going?
Shout out to my guy Shivy. He just ran last year. One for school board. He just got the APS teachers a raise. He was the. Let me tell you how that process even happened. First off, let's start the long game. First, start about state level, right? They had to change a state law to allow teachers to run. Did you know that no school board in the state of Georgia can have a teacher on the school board?
The irony.
Ain't that kind of crazy?
Because you got people making laws and they ain't in the classroom.
They don't even have an understanding of what's happening in the building.
And that's why the teachers are frustrated.
Exactly. You're not even being heard. So for one, I think 2020, 21, we championed for that, got that bill changed.
Amazing.
Then, no, that was 2020. Then 2020, I think 2021 he ran for school board. So 2023, he just ran for school board and won. This year they changed the law to give them I think they're making like the highest in the state. The teachers of Atlanta Public Schools.
Oh, no wonder my sister switched over there.
You know what I'm saying? They was like, they gonna go where the money at. But also, we had to do that. You know what I'm saying? We had to be in that arena to know what we could and couldn't do. We had to show up. We had to meet the right people who will be willing to champion for that change for us. And so that's a thing where we have to see the levels of government and just being, again, you don't even have to be talking. You can just be a fly on the wall and be like, and then take that back to your conversation. You know, you be your own news reporter. What the hell they doing down here? This is crazy. Like, when you sitting on this, you be like, bruh, what did they vote on? What did they vote against? Oh, my God. They said they don't want this. How they going to go? Like, you really be seeing that happen in real time and seeing how stubborn some people can be to bring resources to other people. Because the job of an elected official should be to bring the resources to their community. But as a community, are you being boisterous enough to say this is what you want? And so my job as an organizer is to take the community and bring them to the public arena for them to be boisterous in that space.
And be heard.
And be heard to say, listen, tell your story in front of them. They need to know this is happening right now.
Yep.
They need to see this in real time and know who they're affecting.
Because case in point, I am strong short-term rental legislation. If we didn't show up in force, a lot of us will be right now getting fined and taxed heavily for not stupid, but very uneducated laws that were passed in that regards.
And it had nothing to do with what you did.
Exactly.
And we're very reactive to a fault at times, but also we have to have good people in office that make decisions that could benefit for the community, right? Mm-hmm. Like, I'm a big fan, and it's not the most popular thing in the city of Atlanta, but I've known the mayor, Andre Dickens, for about 8-9 years.
Oh, you knew him back in Georgia Tech days then?
Yeah, well, I know. I only knew him. Well, one of his cousins is a close friend of mine. I used to do parties at Club Miami back in 05, 06. And so I've always known his cousin. Like, that's my dog. And then once I started the nonprofit space around 2017, when I tell you about the Hurricane Harvey thing, he was a deacon at the church. He had his entire church full of U-Haul worth of supplies and bring it to the drop-off location.
Wow.
And then when Keisha got into office, at the inauguration, I was his guest. And so that kind of started to open my eyes a little bit more. But it was just seeing me in community before she got in office. But it has to be people that are willing to change laws and think about. So a case that happened not too long ago was a police officer tased an older guy, Mr. Holloman, I think his name was. I don't want to misspeak on his name. He was tased because he didn't want to sign the ticket, right? And so there was a law that said you have to sign the ticket if they give it to you or you're going to jail. Those are the only two options. Sign a ticket, go to jail.
Isn't that coercion?
I don't know. It's the law. I would say it was the law. Because of that, they had a police encounter, and the man was refusing to sign the ticket. And so then they wanted to take him to jail. And he resisted. They ended up tasing him. He ends up dying.
It's like sign the ticket or die, really.
They end up changing the law this year to where you don't have to sign the ticket. Like, okay, if they don't want to sign the ticket, we're not going to get to the point where we got to forcibly take them in. So, like, it's not worth, like you said, okay, you got all the information on the ticket, you got the address, you can follow up with them.
Mail them the bill or something, yeah.
You don't have to, you can avoid the physical confrontation. Yep. And so you have to have people that think about stuff like that and then are willing. So in the city of Atlanta, that law has been changed recently as well. So just being able to see the process of how we can have something happen, but also talk to elected officials about it and then be like, you know what, that does make sense to change. And so that's the biggest thing, is to get people in office that have some type of moral or integrity, but you're not going to agree with everything everybody does. And so, like I said, that's a good friend of mine that's allowed me to work with him when we have private conversations about things we agree and disagree about. You know what I'm saying? But at the same time, it's a good network. But I honestly have seen him do this work for 10 plus years. And I know that he cares genuinely. And it might not be everything that you agree with. You know, I don't agree with everything either, but I'm not going to publicly bash him because of that, because I still think that is a good friend of mine.
Oh, yeah.
So where would people want to tune in with you, catch up, see your work, engage? What are the best ways to reach out to
Smart Trouble. Smart Trouble is my Instagram and Twitter.
Is that a homage to your friend?
It's a double entendre.
Okay.
So how that came about, 2021, John Lewis passed away, and we was leading a protest through the streets for that. I got interviewed by like CBS and all this stuff. And I was like, what's the Good Trouble 2.0? Like, I was like, I love what he did, but now I don't want to just show up and get in good trouble. I want to have strategic thoughts about what we're doing. I want to be intelligent. Again, my whole thing was branding intelligence. And so with me having the nickname Smart or whatever, and then it was called, then I formed Smart Trouble. And then just because of it, Trouble being my friend, my nickname, my name being Smart, it was a double entendre. And so it was like, it means both. You know what I mean? So Smart Trouble is the brand, the LLC that I own now. Now, I did not have the LLC when he passed away. I converted it to a LLC, and because I started doing more entrepreneur stuff. And so I do like some consulting work in this space now outside of my job. So the Smart Trouble LLC was formulated in honor of him. Yes. But the Smart Trouble, I actually was like, I have a video on my page of I have the Smart Trouble shirt on. It says outthink everybody at the bottom, and me and him standing outside just laughing on Edgewood talking about it.
Whoever knew that would be such an iconic picture.
Man, you never know. And I think we got to make sure we capture our moments and that we're enjoying it. Like some of us, I'm going to be honest, it used to be me too cool to pull your phone out and capture the moment. But I've seen death at such a magnitude. I had a friend who went to bunch with me who I talked to up until the day he died at 33. He died the day after George Floyd. I didn't take pictures with him. It just wasn't it's just not something we did. Hey, bro, take a picture right quick. We just, and then you realize that's all you got left is those memories. So ever since then, I've been like, hey, bro, I'm capturing them on. We having a good time. Yeah. Let's take a picture. Let's at the least make a video of whatever the fun moment is. And so of Trouble, he pops up every day in my memories. Like I literally have a video. It probably I think today's October 9th. So I think I saw one with him and Lucci in the studio one time. You know what I'm saying? Like I always was around for that. And so I'm always like capture the moment because you don't know. But at the same, it really ain't. It really ain't.
Yeah, Alicia Keys got a word in her song that says, I don't want to forget the present is a gift. And I love it.
Yes.
I love it.
I think, yes, we don't appreciate that gift enough. And we don't value that. Like when people be like, bro, you do a lot. Are you going to burn out? I'm like, I'm trying to maximize my day. Like if I got time, I got time. If I don't, then I don't. But I'm trying to I don't believe in bad days. That's one of my mental things. I don't believe, we have bad moments. But how far do you carry that moment throughout your day before you let go and let God deal with that bad moment?
That part.
Because what if this was your last day? You was moping the whole fucking day. Like, broke in my car. That happened at lunchtime. You done told everybody the same story. It's 8 o'clock at night. I had a bad day because, all right, that happened.
The bad day.
Yeah, or you prolonged it. You held on to it. You kept talking about it. You had to call your aunt. Called your girlfriend, you called your mom, you called your dad. Deal with it if you can. Get that window fixed. You're going to have to. And continue on your day.
Okay.
But you're going to have obstacles throughout your day. Right? But it's like, I'm not stuck in the negativity. And so I feel like you just have to really like have that strength to understand the value of the moment and the day. And have a great day every day. And if you can stockpile those up, or if you can have, my goal is to have 1 or 2 impactful conversations a day. 365 times 2, that's 700 in a year. Usually I'm doing more than that. But if I can just hit those goals of, that's my bucket list. How am I always exercising those muscles, of productivity? My goal is to grow in self-development. How can I challenge myself to be better daily? And that's a part of it.
Well, I know you said your dad was an author. Look like you're an author too.
I'm working on it. I got some ideas. I want to write. I've been in a funk. I'm not gonna lie with progressing on some of my projects because it's this funny audio that I have. Right, it's of Trouble, and he's like, "Hey, bruh, when you gonna run for office one day?" It's like a voice note. He's like, "You be talking that shit, bruh, and people don't know what you be talking about." And in the response, I say, "I ain't running for nothing. I'm gonna write a book about it." Right. And I've actually started on it, but I haven't prioritized it. It's on me. Like it's really just time management on myself. I can't make no excuse for it. It's something I want. And I feel like that could actually take me to another level of productivity in this space to spread wide and far. Cause I want to be able to get the next generation these copies in their hands of, it got something called smart codes, where it's like it's 2 different ideas I have. One called Smart Codes. It was like youth development, like early like preparation for the real world, like a cheat code at life, like talking to you about your cost of living, like what do you really got to have to really be comfortable, and what jobs can you, what routes do you take? Because at 18, I ain't know shit. I was, God damn it, supposed to go to school, But what if that's not for you? Or what other avenues are there for you to explore? So my whole thing is just like embedding into, my whole thing is about chasing greatness. And I look at greatness as, once you're gone, how long will your legacy have impact? Like I got Fred Hampton tatted on my arm. He was murdered at 21 years old, but I think he was the greatest organizer ever. Because we talked about the Martins and the Malcolms, but at 21, when the FBI got to kill you, you were bad, motherfucker. You him.
You doing something.
You organizing black and white people in Chicago. You had the coalitions, the rainbow coalitions, and at 21 years old, leading the whole chapter of the Black Panthers. So I look at his work. And that movie Judas and the Black Messiah is a great depiction of his work. But your legacy, when you're done here, what type of impact will you have? And that's what I've been chasing since I've seen so much death. I've been saying you either die a regular nigga or you die a legend. And I want to build my legacy in real time. And so it's like, how do I work my ass off until I'm exhausted and I can say I poured my all into it? Because no one can really gauge your effort. Like, no, I can go home, smoke a blunt, drink some Hennessy. I'm cool. All right, let's do it again tomorrow. Right? And so it's like, how do we maximize our days? How do we really say, hey, tomorrow I got speak with some kids and I got the Black Men's Lab and I got a community meet. You know what I mean? Like day by day, set up, take your time to yourself and rest. Self-care is a big thing, yes. But if you can give more. Internally, I'm not giving it my all. I haven't dedicated myself to a cause. And if I can look myself in the mirror and say, bruh, you working your ass off. And now I'm in that space like, you earned this shit. Like all this shit is coming to you. You busted your ass for 10 years consecutively. And everything you ever wanted is coming to fruition. And it's like, it's real. And now I can be an example of what the work looks like.
Yeah.
And so that's how it works for me.
I love it. I love it.
Well, thank you for taking the time to stop by today, Scotty. I
appreciate it. Like I said, met you randomly. But like I said, I just love building with Kyle and them. I got to go see his new spot. I think they got a new location.
Yes, the second one,
I'm going to go tour that. He's a part of our coalition of the Georgia Cannabis Coalition for Cannabis Reform. We actually had a press conference there last year. And so it's just about community building. And so any way I can be a support, any way I can be a resource, I would love to continue to work with you guys.
Appreciate it.
Oh, yeah. As always, be sure to like and subscribe if you found this information helpful. I mean, hell, with all the information that he gave, you don't even have to read the books. You can just listen to the interview over and over, talking about his journey and leaning in. Take action. Yes. Especially by starting by liking and subscribing to this video and telling somebody else about it. As always, you got it. Let's get it.
Let's go.